happening here, boss?
Downpipe just gone on, the big N2 catted 100 cell. Tony is just wrestling with getting the top intake chamber in because the customers requested that we put studs on the front of their turbo. They wanted to put some titanium studs on there. So now there's not a lot of room to actually slide it in, but he'll get it. And then we will probably actually end up taking the intercooler off and getting it sent away to get it powder coated by the customer's request. So we'll end up probably putting the standard one on while that's being happening, so it can still move around. But yeah, we're pretty much there. We wanted to run a test with the FL5, being that the turbo's different. We've got an expansion chamber, all that type of stuff on the intake, where we found with the old cars we picked up, you know, a couple of kilowatts just from ditching the airbox. But what we found was, even though it's effectively the same engine, the reason why we didn't see the increase on this car that we did on the old car is the intake chamber, the intake chamber has air obviously already stored in it. It's designed to muffle the intake sound, but it means that on initial throttle input, so when you crack the throttle, there's already a whole bunch of extra air in that charge pipe that the turbo can draw from. So we didn't see the initial change in peak power from airbox to open filter. So it was still good to test. We'll still finish testing this all once it's all buttoned up with all the airflow and everything on it. But effectively, when the bonnet's shut, you can see there's even a nice seal around there. The FL5 actually has a better skirt than the FK8 sitting right here in the front. So air comes flying through here, up there, over the top and then down. And the whole idea here is, obviously while the car is stationary, you will get a hotter air temperature. But when the car's moving, you're actually going to get a whole lot of fresh air around that filter. So we've done a lot of testing with different intakes on the previous car as well. And yes, some intakes were hotter than others for stationary air temp. But once the cars were moving, it didn't matter what intake we tested. There was like a Blitz one that covers up the whole side of the car. What else is there? Even Cherry one.
Group M,
yeah,
does that big carbon bucket.
None of them made any difference.
We've seen PRL ones, we've seen
HKS.
What's that first one we had?
InGen.
Yeah, InGen.
None of them made any difference. The only thing that changed was the air intake temperature while the car, oh, that sounded like a drop bolt. The air intake temperature while the car was sitting in traffic. Once the airflow, and this is something that people find really hard to sort of fathom, once the airflow is moving through the system. Now yes, the colder air that you can get into the turbo, the better, because colder air is denser. But the fundamentals of it are, once this air is moving through here and that turbo spinning at like 100,000 RPM plus, the air can't heat soak because it's moving through the pipe too fast. And then the turbo itself is going to superheat the air anyway once it's compressed. So there's a lot of people that get real caught up on, especially with turbo cars, about these cold air intakes, and they spend thousands of dollars. And I'm talking, like, I've seen some of these intakes, some of these bills are like 5,000 New Zealand dollars once they're landed here. Aesthetically, they look really nice in the engine bay. Some of the carbon work and stuff is mwah.
Nice.
End result is they don't really make any difference from a cheaper intake. So yeah, we're just trying the tried and true, get rid of the airbox, remove the restriction and test it.
So this is all you fabricated?
So Nathan freestyled us a little airbox, or like an air scoop, that sits on the factory inlet. So again, once the air is moving through the front of the car, it's literally sealing on the bonnet here, so it's just going to come up and go straight down and supply that filter with fresh air from the front of the car.
And this is something you guys are gonna
We're going to play around with it maybe a little bit more. This was always just a test pipe at this stage. It's very, very hard to hand make these parts. Nathan had a lot of trouble. You probably won't come across on camera very well, but this pipe here is actually hand rolled. Nathan hand rolled it because it's got to be a specific size to not upset the airflow meter. And also this bend here, right, we want to retain all of the factory evap and all that type of stuff, and the oil breather system. So getting this in exactly the right position to actually then hand make something is quite difficult. And I mean, again, there's a lot of cheaper intakes out there on the market, so you know, that's something we might look at as we continue on with our development. At this stage, I'm happy with just having the test pipe on there, but we definitely will probably look at a production unit a bit later, which will consist of an open air box which connects up to this with a filter that sits inside it. That will probably be something that will have to be 3D scanned and done that way, rather than doing a hand-folded, handmade airbox. It's just too hard to replicate, to be fair. But Tony should have this buttoned up soon, and yeah, then we can probably get it back on the dyno soon to test it.
Oh, hey, dyno.
We can get it back on the dyno now to test it with the new downpipe before we send the intercooler away to get powder coated. Well, I guess this is kind of part 2 of the first video, so we're doing a lead-in. Just come off the hoist, the TPD downpipe is on. This is our last test we're going to do without the aero attached, so it's still open. We're going to do a downpipe test first, and then Dan's already made up a new start file, so we can start putting, we'll try and start putting some power into it. Now the cooling mods are done, the downpipe is a lot more free flowing. It now has a 100 cell cat in it instead of a 1,000,000 cell dolphin saving cat. So yeah, we are going to try and lean on it now, and hopefully it'll do FK8 things.
Yeah, so the question is that what can this turbo do? So what I've done in the map, these are all torque based, so I've increased some of the torque limits. I've set a target boost of 1.8 bar through the whole rev range, and because these turbos and all that run in closed loop, they'll try and hit it. So
hang on, it appears that we have Freedom Unit subscribers now.
America, fuck yeah!
Americans don't understand bar.
Bar, okay, so 1 bar is 14.5 psi. So you take 14.5 psi, times it by 1.8, which
for our American viewers,
I'm
thinking of you guys.
I'm great at maths, but I still use the calculator.
All 2 of you.
1.8 times 14.5. So yeah, I'm targeting 26 pound.
26 Freedom units.
Yeah, 26 Freedom units, and I'm telling the car to get there. So I've taken some of the limits off the turbo just to say try and hit it. Now I don't think it will. My guess is based on the size of the FK8 turbo and how much smaller this is on the exhaust side. I think we'll see what we normally see on, say, like a KO3 on a Mark 5 Golf, is that you try and target a higher boost level and they never get there. They just hit there and just taper off. So
Can't compare this to a Golf.
we'll see. But anyway, regardless, we've got bigger turbos that we'll bolt on. JP will talk to you about turbos, but I just want to see what we can actually get out of this with the limits turned.
Actually,
Not all off, but off.
Pierce, add the buy my turbo thing that you did from the other video. Buy my turbo. Yeah. All right. Let's go into it.
yeah, so we just done, I don't know how we did about 5-6 pulls because PS wanted to get different videos from different angles, but anyway, taken just an average pull from the intercooler and the average pull from this with the downpipe. So we can say where we picked up. So the idea of where a downpipe helps is that it reduces the back pressure coming off the back of the turbo. So it has two effects really, which is one, it can help get the boost spooled up a little bit quicker, and also at higher RPM sometimes we get a bit of a stalling of the gas in the downpipe. You know, you've got more gas flowing out of the engine faster, you want to try and get it out as fast as possible. So the smaller the downpipe, it can back up a little bit and it can slow down the exhaust wheel. So by having a bigger downpipe, we've actually found probably the biggest gains. I'd say here might just be a formality because cars do some learning over time. I wasn't actually logging the boost when I was doing the intercooler run because we're just looking at temperature, but I was logging it on the dash anyway. But yeah, we have found that it has actually picked up quite substantially after 5,000. It's not falling over as much, so that's obviously showing that we've improved some of the back pressure off that back of that turbo at the top of at higher RPM. So now we're just going to flash my file. I'll go upstairs. I'll kind of just explain what I've kind of done in the mapping, just so we can, without obviously going into too much details about what we do and where the torque limiters and all that sit in this. So yeah, I'm going to go through and do that now. Actually, should I fucking tidy some of this shit up?
Nah, it's too late. I've already recorded it.
Are you getting this all on camera? Like rubbish, coffee cup.
Oh, you just put that in the worst place.
No, I'm going to do that.
yeah.
I'm going to fucking move it. Just don't look over there. Wait. Nothing to see here. Hey? Oh no, hey, that's right. That's JP's rubbish as well. Right. FL5 mapping. The actual great thing is that actually the software in the FL5 and the FK8 are actually very similar. Yeah, so I got the FL5, so I'm actually comparing it against a different map here. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to change the file for a second. This is our turbo maxed file, so that's the one I want to look at, and I just want to compare that against the factory one. So the software in an FK8 and an FL5, they are the same software. Well, similar software. The same hardware, they run a Bosch ECU. The ECU version, which will tell me soon, I think it's an MED something, 17 I think. Yeah, MED 17.9.3, which actually the MED 17.9 ECUs I think also used in Hyundai, and I think they're also used in the Mercedes as well. So they make different ECUs across the board, but the good thing is it's Bosch software. You know, I've been tuning this stuff on Volkswagens, Mercs, Beamers, whatnot for ages, so when Honda started using it, we kind of had a head start there, which is why we were also able to bring the FL5 tuning to the market so quickly. The reason for that is the FK8 ECU and the FL5 ECU were very similar. Because we're actually part of Honda New Zealand, I managed to get some of the pinouts for the ECU, and I managed to send all those pinouts to Dimsword, who's our software supplier, and we worked closely with them to try and get a file from an FL5 to them so they could start developing the maps and actually giving me access to all of this stuff so I can modify it, which was great from them, so thank you very much, Dimsport. So yeah, anyway, so we started off by doing a very mild tune, taking some of the limiter increases and stuff on what we did on the FK8s, and I just worked with that as a starting point and then just started adjusting from logs, which is where we got to with the stage 1 when we developed the file originally. Now what we're doing is, because we're unlocked some of the restrictions in the cooling, which was one of the things that we had to kind of limit the power last time, is because the car was getting quite hot, and now that obviously we've picked up some power at the top end for the downpipe, so we can kind of start using some of the benefits there. So what I have done in this base map is they are all torque based, so this is a map control. What I'm actually going to do here, I'm actually going to just increase that top end part there so we can get the boost to hold up. So this is maximum torque profile, so this is a maximum allowable torque, and pretty much we're holding this line flat all the way. So we've got two maps relating to that. It's probably to do with different drive modes. It'll be sport, plus, and race. So we're going to make some changes here. The big one is also in our compressor turbo protection. So this is an intake map based on maximum allowable boost. So what I've done here is that I've just checked that this is all atmospheric. So it's not the target boost map. These 3.6 numbers don't actually reflect something. It's just really a limiter. So I would never send a file out like this in a customer's car. Reason being is that this has got the limiters removed, but we do this for a test basis, and I'm looking at the logs while I'm doing the run. So if anything gets too high for my liking, I will back out, just back out of the run. And this is the kind of thing when we do when we're tuning, we take the limiters off, we see where we need to get to, make sure the temperatures are looking good, which is air intake, coolant, oil temp, make sure we target boost pressures and all that are hitting what they're supposed to be hitting, looking at ignition, looking at knock, all of these things. So when we see something not right in a tune or anything like that, which is why we run cars on dynos, because you can run them in a 1-to-1 ratio, you can run them up to 250k an hour, which also means that the run is generally very slow, so it gives us enough time to capture anything before it actually happens. That you don't want to run it in third or second or anything like you would on the road, which is one of the dangerous things with road tuning, is that sometimes you can't capture these things quick enough, especially when you're trying to look where you're going. So I don't have to look where I'm going on a dyno, I'm looking at a data log. So anyway, those have been increased. Things also which I also increased is our exhaust gas temperature limit. The factory map actually runs a little bit hotter. I'm actually just going to pull this back, so I actually reduce it by a couple of percent. So I'm going to pull that back just to 0. So we just got the same limits here. And yeah, so we either have things like desired pressure ratios in here, which is the targets map, which is actually reflecting pressure in a calculated pressure ratio based on what your atmospheric pressures are. So that's all just holding flat. Factor for reduced filling, we've increased that. That's just a hex number. That's not 128. 128 is generally the maximum number before you go back to 0. And yeah, maximum pressure limit depending on temperatures, so these are just a percentage, so we're just setting them at 102%, so just a little bit higher than 100%. We have things like power limit torque tables, which is the maximum allowable torque limit, which generally we have to increase to the same level as our max torque profile, and our driver torque request, which we've set as, I think I've got that set at about 600 newton-meter, or there we go, 550. So that's an FK8 would probably set at about 600, but with the turbos being the size they are, I don't think we're ever going to get there on the FL5. So we'll start with 550, which is that should be more than enough. So anyway, we'll see what we get out of this. All the lambda enrichment's all been turned up, so yeah, we'll go from there and we'll see what we get. We did a tune, and we've got the tune in, and we're just going to run it up. And
Did a tuna fish.
Bullshit, asshole. No one likes a tuna here.
I'm going to grab my laptop from up there, grab my HP tuning cable, and do some logs.
I hope we can make some more power now. I really do.
I think the turbo's out of puff. I think it might be a little bit better, but I don't think it's going to make much difference, to be honest.
Well, I own an FK8 and mine makes heaps of power, so I'm fine with that.
Because we just flashed the car, Daniel's going to get it back into dyno mode. It currently thinks it's going to hit a fan. Make the power!
There we go. So taking the limits off, it's just peaking at 1.9 bar, and then it just drops away, which is what I thought it did, but So it was probably doing it there. I've just let some of the limiters off, but yeah, it seems to be holding it there. That's actually not bad. Looking at the temps, it's okay. It's getting to 42, 43 degrees on that last run. On the top, on the first run, and it got to 45, 46 on the last. Which is, we still don't have ducting on it, so I think that will be better. And the fact is that our dyno fan, as we've said once before, stops at about there from airflow. So
I'm kind of a little bit gutted about that, to be fair. Like, we've made some gains,
but it's not an FK8, is it?
nah.
So we go to that was the one that we did, that was just a stage 1 that we did what, last week? That blue one?
No, that was 2.
No, there was one, there was only stage 1, we did one. Oh, okay.
Well, yeah, but anyway, so that one made what?
Less boost, follows very similar torque. You know, this one did make a little bit more, you know, through up to about 5, and then yeah, the boost just falls over. But the thing is, because the turbo's so much smaller, it just doesn't flow as much. You could actually get, you know, how much more is that? So we're at 27.5 pounds. You know, it's doing that on 1.6, which is about 24 pounds. So we're about 3 to 4 pound more boost just to get the same power, pretty much.
And the interesting thing there is, if you're looking at it as well, the FK8, which is the bottom one, once Dan does ramp in some more boost and a little bit of an ignition timing change, etc, etc, your peak torque is coming, your peak power is coming in pretty close, and your peak wheel torque is only 100 RPM different.
Yeah, well, peak torque off the bottom, which is with the smaller turbos, will spool up faster. You know, we're comparing 3000 RPM, which is where it's hitting 1.5 bar on an FK8. It's hitting it at 2.5, so it is coming in 500 RPM earlier, which that's a given for a smaller turbo. You're going to see that, but it's making more torque up to 3.5. But after that, there's no difference.
It's falling over and it's done. I mean, maybe you could push it a little bit harder for not much more gain and a lot of heat soak, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah. We have kind of talked to the owner on this about maybe putting a turbo in it.
We should peer pressure him into doing it.
We've got an FK8 turbo.
Well, yeah, I've got everything out on the
like, we should put an FK, like, just for a development, even ask him if he's got the time. If you're happy to do it, maybe we do an FK8 turbo.
Well, this is going to an event soon, but I do have these turbos here because I was gonna, you know, do the buy my turbo thing. But we might as well have a chat about it anyway. This is an FK8 turbo. This is our turbo. So the FL5 turbo sits to scale modelling. The FL5 turbo has the same size compressor side with a different blade design, but it has a smaller exhaust wheel, so smaller than this. This has already got one of our stud kits in it to make things faster when we swapping out turbos, but the exhaust wheel on these is quite small, and the FL5 one's even smaller, which we did have a good look at when we changed the downpipe.
It's really, really small, isn't it? It was like,
well, even the actual housing's smaller. So in terms of sizing, there's you, her ex-boyfriend, and the guy she dreams about is in sizing. If you have a look, that's our in-canal wheel, which is obviously a lot bigger. And then on the compressor side, it's a lot more meaty again.
which is, it's based on a G25.
It's based on a G25 660.
Yeah, so it does have a Garrett cartridge and everything in it, doesn't it? And then all the exhaust housing and compressor housings all custom casted as a back.
So again too, you can also see casting differences. This is still D5S, the same material, but obviously made in aftermarket, not made by, because these are Mitsubishi turbos. That's made by our supplier. A lot better finish on the casting. Same thing as that's not us, that is the factory casting, how they come, and that is our castings. It does still have the port in there for the blow-off valve. But anyway, what the main point here is, like, I was really hoping that we got somewhere close to the previous gen, like the FK8. So I don't know if out and out performance is what you're looking for, then I don't know whether the upgrade is worth it. If you want a more modern interior with a few more modern features and different body style, something that's a little bit more roundy, not as stabby, and
Yeah, it's almost like you're really only buying the car for the warranty, really, aren't you?
from us as TPD, I don't really know, other than unless this customer starts really wanting to push it and change turbos and stuff like that, we're kind of at a stalemate. Like, we can't do any more than it's run out
At this stage, I think the issues that we've got here with this car, I don't think it's really Honda's fault. I think because this is an issue we're seeing with pretty much all modern cars. You know, you saw the same with, I guess, the new Mark 8 Golfs. You're seeing the same thing with like all the new Subarus and everything that are coming out, and all WRXs, since we don't have an STI model. Is that because of the whole emissions and trying to keep them within a certain emission standard and all that, they're having to do things like put small turbos on them.
I just think for me, because I'm just a straight up enthusiast, like, I really enjoy my Type R, and it was simple to modify, it responded really well, it helped us design all of our products. I was expecting to see similar performance in the aftermarket from this car, and it just can't do it.
Well, hey, that turbo does bolt onto it.
Yeah, so we've already, like, our parts fit on it, which is great, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's up to the owner of the car, what they want to do, and I'd be really keen to see what this will do when it gets maxed out on bolt-on. So that would be turbo, downpipe, exhaust, you know, intake, same kind of deal as what the FK8 has. That's when we might find if there are any little differences in the camshafts or whatever, but I mean, again, we haven't been commissioned to tear down the engine, so I don't know what the actual 100% physical differences are. So for now, we will put up maybe a reel or a story or something when it's all back together and everything's all powder coated and whatnot, but I mean, realistically, that's all we're going to make out of the car. There's no more in it. What did we end up? Best run 150 kilowatt.
Yeah, considering that an FK8 just with the stage 1 tunes 174. Well, with stage 2, that would be about stage 2, between 270 and 280. So same mods on an FK8, 22 kilowatts more.
And it holds on further to the end.
Yeah.
It goes all the way to the end. So that's it. I guess, unless you guys want to see anything else with the FL5, obviously we can do some more bits if anyone wants to see us do something else, but I think that's kind of where we are.
Yeah.
Comment, interact, I will reply most of the time. Unless it's something stupid, then I won't reply. Well, that's it. FL5 wrapped up, 250 kilowatt, intercooler. That's max jam. That's all we got. Peace.
Hi.
Home by 11.
Yes.